All right, this most recent session of Odyssey of the Dragonlords gave me a lot of things to think about. Two videos for this one. We're going to do two post videos because there was just that much to talk about. First, we're going to talk about traps. So, greater game commentary people than I have talked about traps, and their videos are all over the place. I'll link one of my favorites in the description of this video. Um, I am I like traps. I think traps are cool. Ever since I was a little kid playing Hero Quest, and like an arrow would shoot out of the wall when I'd search for treasure, or you'd fall down a pit trap and then search the bottom of the pit trap for treasure and fall in another pit trap. Just silly stuff like that. I've had characters killed by traps. I have watched friends killed by traps. I have been the person using traps to kill people. I have designed traps that kill people. Traps that annoy, traps that cause problems. Everybody love Home Alone. One of the best trap movies of all time. Traps are fun. I think. Not everybody feels that way. And some people feel that traps are fun because they can defeat traps. Now, the problem with defeating traps is that the game has been boiled down, and this is a big part, in part because of fourth edition. With that, which I love, but fourth edition did sort of turn everything into a numbers game. Um, it basically made it so like, okay, there's a trap, cool. I'm gonna use my 37 perception to find the trap, and then I'm gonna use my 42 disable device or thieves tools or tinker tools or whatever to disable the trap. And it's like, cool. I mean, that's fun for the person that found the trap and the person that got rid of the trap. And now keep in mind, there are two whole skill proficiencies that had to be used up for that. And if you're setting the difficulty super high, then the person probably only succeeded because they have expertise in it. So they had to give up expertise in something else to take expertise in that. Um, yeah, like, I get it. That's kind of cool and all. And then you do run into the characters that are like, I built my entire character around having a 42, perception, passive perception, so I can see everything, and I can never be defeated, and that's cool too, I guess. But there's a difference between seeing and understanding, right? Which is where investigation and perception kind of butt heads, right? Investigation is intelligence based; it's understanding what's going on around you, whereas perception is just seeing and hearing what's around you. And then there's also the whole thing of like, you don't want to make a trap that's going to instantly kill your party because or your characters, because that's not very nice, and you're not supposed to kill people. And at that point, it's like, why have a trap at all, right? Like, why have a trap at all if the trap is going to kill? If the trap isn't going to stop the people that it's supposed to stop, like, what does a trap do? So there would be like alarm traps, right? You trigger an alarm, people know about it. There might be a trap that gives you some kind of debuff, so things are going to be harder where you're going. There could be a trap that curses you, right? So you're going to have penalties, long-lasting penalties that you have to deal with. Yeah, there's a lot of traps that are not just, I'm going to kill you, right? There are traps that are environmental hazards. There are traps that are monster spawners that keep creating more and more monsters. So, the definition of trap is much broader than just like, I made a check, I made a second check, now there's no more trap. So, Odyssey of the Dragonlords has traps in it. It's written by the BioWare guys, right? That's what I keep calling them, but the creators of like Baldur's Gate and things like that. And I mean, it's got some nasty traps in it. There's some nasty traps in it. This trap is not in any way hidden from the party. It is an elevator that leads to a lower level in the mine. And this is going to be some huge spoilers for Odyssey, obviously, so don't watch any further if you don't want to have that spoiled for you. They approach this elevator, and it is a 10 by 10 by 10 bronze cube with sliding doors. It's an elevator. Inside are 4 dragon heads, their mouths gaping open. Okay, that seems ominous, right? There is a single lever on the far wall, goes up and down. That's it. Now, this elevator, if you do not say the command word before you use it, it will try to kill you. This elevator will try to kill you. So, like, perception doesn't really help, right? Because you see the elevator, you see that there's 4 dragon heads, and you see that there's a lever. Like, what about perception would let you know that this is a trap, right? So investigation might come into play. All right. So investigation, like what about the room makes you think it's a trap? Well, that's where you might say like, oh, well, there's a lever, there's 4 dragon heads. The 4 dragon heads are kind of aimed inwards towards the room. Their mouths are open. There's like a hole like in the mouth or a panel that could be like moved, and the panel's currently closed. Okay, now I'm a little suspicious, right? Get out your tinkering tools, get your thieves tools, try to pry the mouth open. DM could then rule, oh yeah, that's cool. If you succeed, you look inside, you see that there's some kind of tube. It looks like it's supposed to spit out some stuff. So now they're starting to think, oh man, this has got some problems. But still, there's no way to just disable this trap. You could add stuff to the room to try to make it easier to figure out, but as written, this was a pretty tricky trap. And my party was in a hurry. They wanted to get to the next area. They all piled in. They put like 10 people, because they have so many NPCs and pets, into a 10-foot by 10-foot room. And then immediately went and pulled the lever, right? So they pulled the lever, and the elevator doors closed and started going down. Then oil started spraying out. Like all over them. Oil started spraying out of these heads, filling the room. Well, now the party knows they're in trouble, right? So then we switch to initiative, and now they have to figure out what to do. So they're trying to figure out how to disable it, and they're trying to clog up the spouts so it can stop spitting the stuff. And one of the party members thinks, okay, you know what? I'm just going to make the elevator go back up, and that will stop things from happening. Well, when they mess with the elevator controls again, now it's breathing fire into a room full of oil and people doused in oil. The damage was reduced because some of the heads were clogged up, but honestly, pretty nasty trap. People are on fire. Then they tried to bring science into it, where we're gonna hide under the oil because fire will only burn the surface of the oil. Now, I've got a strict like no science in 5th edition policy because science and magic don't work, but it was a very clever idea, and I was like, sure, we'll go with it. We'll go with science. You hide under the oil because I don't want them to die in a in an elevator. I don't want them to die in the elevator. So they all, are like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Well, then somebody decides that they're going to use like a decanter of water and just fill the place up with water, which then everybody winces because water is not how you put out an oil fire. So we're like, well, if we're respecting the science on one end of the spectrum, we got to respect it on the other side of the spectrum. So now we've got exploding oil, because the water hitting the oil and the oil fire. It was a disaster. The party was jacked up by this trap. It was a disaster. And then they come down here, and they have to get into a big boss fight in a room full of lava. And I think when they arrived, they had maybe like 10 hit points or less on everybody. It was a disaster. So, yeah, traps. I guess what I'm saying with traps is, what kind of game are you running? Odyssey is supposed to be a narrative game. It is supposed to be a character-driven game. But the writers have included some you will die traps. Just like Tomb of Annihilation, there are traps that straight up say, if this attack reduces you to 0, you're dead forever. If this reduces you to 0, your body is turned to paste. If this reduces you to 0, your body is turned to ashes. It is not pulling any punches on the trap department. Traps. They will change the way your game works. My players for the rest of the campaign now are going to be afraid of every room and every door because of how nasty this trap was. Which is going to slow down gameplay significantly because they're going to check every room for traps. They're going to check every room for this. Fortunately, I have cheat sheets by my monitor that have everybody's passive perception and passive investigation, so I can at least give them the courtesy of that and say, yep, I'm checking these all the time as you move through the dungeon. But yeah, like, traps is definitely a topic as a DM that you're going to have to think real hard about. And so, yeah, I'll definitely provide in the description some other people's opinions on traps, and different ways that, that people feel about them. Some people feel that they are a detriment to the game, a waste of time. Other people feel that they're only fun for like one or two people at the table. Other people feel like it is an abuse of trust. For my part, in games that I run, dungeons will generally have traps in them, because the dungeons are built to not want people to come into them. And if a character with a high perception / high investigation shows up and they find my traps, I'm totally okay with it because there's plenty of other things to do in the dungeon. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on traps because I don't think I'd ever talked about it in any of the post-game videos, because no trap had been as nasty as this trap. This was a very nasty trap. Alright, in the next video we're going to talk about the crazy epic boss battle they had against this flippin' Cerberus here. Yeah, wait till you see that. It was pretty ridiculous. So we'll talk about that in the next video.